Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Jacobs. This is Module 5 from the School of Social Work at BCU's Neurobiology class. Today we're going to be talking about neurobiology, attachment, and relationships. In Module 4, I briefly talked about relationships and attachment, and we'll be going into it more in this lecture. This lecture is very neurobiology heavy, science heavy. It's not very long, so just try your best to stick with me for it. So, young humans face two primary challenges in early life, and that is a brain that's not fully developed at birth and the imperative of maintaining closeness to their nursing mothers. Consequently, the mother's body and her behaviors play a critical role in structuring the juvenile brain, guiding it towards social interactions through the bond formed with her. Again, this is from a biological perspective. I'm not saying that every human is nursed or every human is born from a cisgender um, mother. This is just, again, from biological, neurological research studies, okay? This bond also provides the context for developing neural networks supporting social behavior through caregiving. For a small percentage, so 3 to 5% of species that exhibit cooperative parental care, father involvement, and paternal parenting behaviors also contribute to infant brain development. Attachment bonds exhibit several distinct characteristics, the first being an infant's preference for specific individuals, otherwise known as their attachment figures, and that's the language that I'll use through the lecture. The critical importance of these selective and irreplaceable bonds is revealed through the child's sustained effort to stay near these figures, especially during times of distress or need. Another critical aspect of attachment bonds is the infant's response to temporary separations and subsequent reunions with attachment figures, which can shed light on the quality of attachment relationships. Optimal attachment is usually associated with adaptive behaviors, which, for example, would be crying during separation and followed by a joyous reunion. Conversely, pronounced separation anxiety, distress, or even indifference upon reunion may point to potential attachment difficulties. Finally, the degree to which infants use their attachment figures as a secure base for exploration further indicates attachment quality. This is because infants can only confidently venture out from their caregivers to explore the world if they know and feel that their caregivers are available and responsive when needed. Research has also shown that in response to distinct infant caregiver interaction patterns in times of need, that infants develop different personality-like dispositions known as attachment patterns. These patterns are either characterized as organized, so for example, secure, insecure, avoidant, or anxious, or disorganized. In humans, infants who establish a secure attachment relationship with their attachment figures generally show distress when separated from them. They seek comfort from their caregivers to cope with distress and utilize them as a stable base to explore their surroundings. Conversely, insecure avoidant infants are often absorbed in exploring their surroundings and rarely seek physical comfort, sometimes even actively avoiding it, which is also known as attachment system deactivation. Insecure anxious infants frequently become upset even when their attachment figures are present, and they typically cannot be appeased after separation, displaying either a passive sense or anger, otherwise known as attachment system hyperactivation. Insecure anxious infants are less likely to venture and explore their surroundings, even when their attachment figures are present. Lastly, disorganized attachment characterized infants, those infants have mixed, bewildered, or sometimes cautious behaviors towards their attachment figures, particularly in highly stressful situations. which is often experienced as a part of early adversity. Attachment patterns remain relatively constant from infancy through adolescence and even into late adulthood. And this is according to studies conducted over periods that go as long as 59 years. So Bowlby, who is the founder of attachment theory, proposed that the mammal attachment behavioral system most likely developed because it increased the chances of survival and eventual procreation for members of a species who were born with a lack of sufficient abilities for self-defense, movement, and nourishment. The system aims to prove tangible protection or support and the corresponding feeling of safety or security. This twofold aim becomes prominent when an individual encounters real or symbolic stressors and perceives that their attachment figures are not adequately present, caring, or responsive. Attachment behavior begins with the sensory perception of a threat, so a natural sign of danger, which triggers proximity-seeking behavior to attachment figures, followed by a reunion that helps to remove the threat, alleviates distress, and fosters felt security. Following the acquisition of the security that I just mentioned, the behavioral attachment system is deactivated, and the person can return to their daily activities. If this feels like a lot of information, if it feels like a lot of the same words, that's okay. It's also okay to, re-listen to this conversation if necessary and if that would be helpful. I just wanted to briefly talk about loneliness, which is also covered in this module. In social species such as humans, non-human primates, and even many rodent species, social interaction and the maintenance of social bonds are necessary for mental and physical health and well-being. In humans, perceived isolation or loneliness is not only characterized by physical isolation from peers or loved ones, but it also involves negative perceptions about social interactions and connectedness that reinforce the feelings of isolation and anxiety. As a complex behavioral state, it's no surprise that loneliness and isolation are associated with dysfunction within the ventral stratum and the limbic system, which are regions in your brain that regulate motivation and stress responsiveness. Accompanying these neural changes are physiological symptoms like increased plasma and urinary cortisol levels and an increase in stress responsiveness. Although studies using animal models are not perfect, when you're thinking about the human state of loneliness, studies on the effect of social isolation in animals have observed similar physiological symptoms. So loneliness impacts us and it impacts our brain. That is our lecture for today. Thank you so much for sticking with me. Please don't hesitate to email and reach out if you have any questions. Have a good day.